Hey my dear Nightshades, it's Otti again. I'm sitting here in Dortmund at the Phantastischer Lichter Weihnachtsmarkt. Beside me is Ronan from VNV Nation. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
You should know him now after our last interview.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think most people also
If not, my name is Ronan. I have a little music project called VNV Nation I've been doing for a couple of years. It's fun.
Yeah. And today you're playing here at the Phantastischer Lichter Weihnachtsmarkt. I think this is something special even for you.
Oh my god, yeah. When we heard the idea, we all said, yeah, let's do it. It's a pity the snow melted and now it's all like Schlammfest outside, but it's really wonderful. And the atmosphere with everybody here. Old friends here. It's great.
And we have some connection to the medieval community?
I do actually, because it's hard to explain. Medieval music in Germany and the medieval scene, I didn't really get it when I first saw it when I came over, because in Ireland when we hear our folk music, our folk music is already ancient. And I'm very familiar with middle-aged things and medieval things and earlier. So I found it really interesting. The more I talked with people here, their philosophies and their approach to it, their perspective, and I find it absolutely amazing that something like this can exist at a Weihnachtsmarkt, where you have the general public coming. It's one of the biggest Weihnachtsmärkte in the world, I've heard, if not the biggest in Europe.
Maybe.
Somebody said, yeah. And I think that's an incredible aspect of culture, because in the modern world, we throw away any connection with our past, which I think is a very, very sad thing. So it's wonderful that it's here.
Yeah, good. And this is something we can talk about, because is there any connection to the Irish traditional music that you see?
Well, when I see people playing bagpipes, I always have to ask. And I've gotten to know on festivals. I love musicians. I mean, even though I make electronic music, I don't really like to talk to bands that are a laptop and a person. I like to talk to people who feel something in their music, and it also opens my mind to other sounds. So I've gotten to know a lot of the musicians in the so-called like Mittelalter scene, and we talk a lot about like who our favorite musicians are, from at least from the Irish side of things or the Scottish side of things, and then I start to learn more about Breton music or the German pipes and the French pipes, and I've really learned an incredible amount. And also I wrote a song on my last album called Run, and as a kind of an honor to my brother-in-law, who is Scottish, and he died a few days before it, and I wrote the song, and I did it so that you can only play the main melody on bagpipes. It's written in the key that is specifically to be played on bagpipes. So I always have a connection with old instrumentation. I mean, when I grew up, it was normal, it was everywhere. We would go, I lived a lot of time in the countryside, and you'd go into a pub, and people talk about pubs in Ireland thinking that it's just about alcohol. It's not. It was the meeting place for everybody in every town. It's where people did business, where farmers talked and argued or whatever. But there were always traditional musicians in it. So I grew up with it. I find it, for me, it's second nature.
And is this something that reflects in your music?
Not yet, but I have done in the past. But because I'm electronic based, what's that? I use a computer and I create everything from symphonies to God knows what. I have some ideas and wishes, but it really comes down to when I know the right people and I have the right moment to do it. Because I would love to do a folk version of my music. We were talking about this the other day, that my attitude has always been, you can write a great song, and if that song can be played on an acoustic guitar or a piano or a flute, and it works with an orchestra. So yeah, it translates, and I want to, I'm a musician. I love music, and I love music that's played with a passion. So as long as I'm working with people who have that passion in their hearts, that they're doing it because it really means something to them, I would love to. I really would absolutely love to do a folk version of some of my songs. I do sing traditional Irish music. One of the crew is a friend of mine from America. He's of an Irish background, and he's very, very deep into his culture. And it looks like his family come from the same place as my mother's family. So it's likely that, you know, a couple of 100 years back, maybe not even 100 years back, we were related. So after the shows we were playing, or even before the shows in Rüsselsheim, we're doing these Christmas shows at the moment. We were playing all our favorite Irish music over the PA and singing along, because it's an amazing feeling.
So are you capable of some of the instruments? Or
oh no, my mother tried to get me to play accordion, because it's a very big instrument in Irish music, as in a lot of folk music in Europe. I learned piano, that's it. So I can't really, piano is not an instrument you hear a lot of in traditional Irish music.
Yeah, I think so. But to come to another thing about this, there are, I think, some Irish traditions who still live, something like Christmas traditions maybe at this point.
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, for example, you know, we just had Halloween a couple of weeks ago, and this is one of our New Year's. Like in the Celtic tradition, and I was very interested in the Celtic, the ancient side of Ireland when I was a child, and still all the way through into my teenage years, and I would do all of these old rituals with friends because they were part of our lives, you know. I've written about them a lot in songs, but what I loved was that the tradition of Halloween, which is a Celtic festival, and specifically really in historical terms, more of an Irish festival than anything. This was where the god of the underworld allowed the souls or the spirits of the dead to leave the underworld, to walk through our world and try to find their way to a better place. And all these traditions about dressing your children up as demons, and then dressing them, like on the west coast of Ireland until not really that long ago, boys were dressed as girls, because then the fairies wouldn't steal them. Because the fairies would steal the young men, so there would not be warriors when they grew up. And my grandfather had a tradition always to keep a candle and water in the window, because it would guide the spirits through the land and also offer them something to drink. And I still do that. There are lots of traditions. For me, the 21st is a very important day. It marks the solstice. It was a very important day for my ancient ancestors, and Christmas, of course, is more of a Roman festival. So to me, it marks the beginning of the ascent of the sun. The sun comes back. It's a winter festival for all of us. I mean, there are traditions. There are special foods we would have on Christmas, but our celebration in Ireland would always be on the 25th. And Christmas Eve is just a night to sit around with the family and wait for Santa to show up.
Yeah, I think it's the same in England, but in Germany, for example,
right?
Yeah,
of course. But there's lots of reasons for that. You know, like why do you celebrate Christmas on the 20? Why is it celebrated on the 24th and 25th? It's the specific number of days after the solstice, because this is the birth of the sun. There you go.
Okay. And we don't have that much time today,
because
we have to go on stage soon.
No.
But we have to talk about what's coming next year. There's a tour coming, and we talked last time about your show in Mera.
Yeah.
And I think it's somehow connected, or
yes.
At least.
So there will be 8 concerts in May with a full orchestra, very similar to what I did with the Resonance concerts when I played with the Babelsberg Orchestra. And this time we're playing with the Philharmonie Leipzig. They're the people who played together with me at the Mera show. Wonderful orchestra. Love working with them. I've become very good friends with some of the musicians. They have an interesting group, a gathering or collection of musicians. It is a very different experience when you work with people who are purely working as professional musicians, because in the orchestral world, they're very punktlich, like they're really, everything's on time, and they play a certain time, and okay, we must stop now and take a break, and then we play on. But just to be with these kinds of musicians feels very humbling for me. A lot of times at the past concerts, I thought, why am I here? These are incredible musicians. Why? What am I bringing to this party? What amazed me was Mera was that I did not realize that a lot of people connected with me were all doubting that it would work and being very, very skeptical of it. So when I went on stage, everyone's like, oh, good luck and everything will be fine. And then afterwards they're telling me, oh, thank God, oh, that worked. And I'm like, yeah, why? Yeah, we thought it was going to be a disaster. And I said, well, actually, I thought it could be a half disaster. I thought there would only be like, a couple of thousand people at the front thinking, all right, let's go see some strings. And we were also put on right after Combi Christ, which was an interesting choice. I talked to Andy about that, and he thought it was very funny. But it worked, and I didn't expect it to be a disaster. I kind of went out thinking someone's going to like it. If anything, I thought there will be people who don't like the fact that this music is at their festival taking up time and might shout some things, but I can ignore that. It was incredible because you could hear a pin drop. I could hear people breathing. I've never heard that at a festival. I mean, this is an alternative music festival. It's a tribal festival. I had to explain it to the orchestra. I told all of them, go out, you have your passes. Just go out and look at what's around you because you will never see this maybe again. Like, this is a tribal event. No one's going to hurt you. Everybody's here to have fun. And like some of a lot of the musicians, they've never really been out in an alternative world before. They live in a very safe and formal world. So to them, this was alien. Some of them thought, this is incredible. All the metal guitarists were coming to the violinists to ask, like, how do you play this? And because there's this connection between, you think a guitarist has practiced. We can go on a few minutes longer. We're good. Don't you worry. And there was this wonderful connection between the musicians in the rock bands, the metal bands, and the orchestral musicians, because somehow they've all practiced a lot to do what they do. And I guess a lot of guitarists started out learning classical guitar and learning those kinds of melodies. So there's a kind of a connection, and it was a really wonderful world. The experience was incredible. So yeah, I don't want to stop it. I see the orchestral side as being an incredibly important part of what I do. I'm writing songs for the shows next year. I've already written songs that are not on any other album. I mean, that are written specifically for an orchestra, and I wrote even music for choir. I spent a lot of the time in the pandemic practicing my skills of phrasing and composition, and also learning a lot more about how to score or write for orchestra, so I can at least do something more. And yeah, so we're going to do the 8 concerts next year. There will be another orchestral album, and I would love a live recording as well as the original album, so that you have everything. There are some surprises. There are tracks that we have orchestrated that you have never thought would be orchestrated, but they work. And the really cool thing is when you do it in a different format or a different style and you rephrase. Other than that, I'm going to be another tour in the United States, normal tour with VNV Nation in April. And then at the end of that, we're playing one of the biggest alternative festivals in the world at the end of that, in Las Vegas, which is incredible. And then, yeah, it's going to be a full year. A lot of concerts, individual concerts during summer, like playing at Festungskönigstein and Schloss, wie heißt das? Eirishof. This is, yeah, it's really a full little year. So, but there's a lot else happening I'm not going to talk about until then.
So,
other questions?
We have to talk again.
Oh yeah, we do. We're gonna be busy. Any other questions?
But about the tour, about the symphonic tour, you have a guest with you.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. Maybe. Sorry. Yeah. No, it was not deliberate. I was actually talking with Diary of Dreams a lot because he and I have become very good friends over years. And when he was recording his album, he was recording tracks. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, so you'll have to clear it with them. But he was working to record some tracks, and he was talking about the experience with me, and we both felt exactly the same way about the experience, and it was the only other person I've talked to where we really understood together how this felt. It's a feeling, there's no way to explain it. You have to feel it. When you're standing in front of an orchestra and you hear your song being played, you feel so small but so beautifully happy. You feel, why am I here? Like an imposter. But it is the most soul-filling experience. I can't explain it. To me, it means everything, because I love classical music. I have since I was a child. I love Baroque, avant-garde, the Romantic era, and then everything in between. So to hear these fantastic musicians playing, I want to sit in the audience, to be honest. But yeah, the last concerts were incredibly successful. The ones we did with the Bausberg Orchestra, and these ones are even more successful. We're playing some incredible halls, beautiful halls. They sound fantastic. The hall in Wuppertal, I think for me, is my favorite hall. The sound is beautiful. Playing the Leishalle in Hamburg, which is a gorgeously beautiful building that I think is a better choice than any other location in Hamburg. We all know why I'm saying that. Because it was meant for music written in the late 1800s to the early 1900s, and I'm happy about that. Stuttgart, the hall there, I've never been, but I've been in the Admiralspalast in Berlin. That's up there. I mean, we played the Philharmonie, the Berlin Philharmonic, the hall, and this is a piece of history for people who like orchestral music. The first thing I did was I went onto the stage and I looked for where the conductor, I looked at old photographs to find out where does the dirigent stand? Because I wanted to stand where Hermann von Karajan was standing. And I'm looking at the place next to him and saying, this is where Rostropovich played Don Quixote. This is, yeah. I get emotional about this. Yeah.
For you too.
Oh my God. Like you can't believe. It's really a special thing. Really a special, I feel very blessed and very, very grateful, and that I can do this. Anyway.
Yeah, so maybe we should meet at this tour and talk a little bit about classical music, for example.
I think at this tour I know how the days go. We'll have to talk after. Let's talk after, and then we can talk about how it went. Okay. Because yes. I got a lot of people after the last shows asking me, can you give us a playlist? And I thought, honestly, go and listen to something like Classic FM or something. They play a good selection of popular pieces, but then they'll play the pieces in between, and they'll also play soundtracks. And it's a great way to get into it, because it's a different way of listening to music. It's like jazz. If you only listen to, say, techno all your life, and you hear jazz, it's very hard to understand, well, what does this mean? What's the point they're making? And understanding why classical music is written the way it is a very interesting thing. And it's really, you have to listen, and if you like it, then read more and get into it, because you can't believe how many people in this audience also listen to really diehards. I mean, we talk about very obscure composers, and it's a beautiful thing, a really nice conversation.
Absolutely. So to come to an end now somehow, we have to talk about Modcom. Is something there going?
Jesus, wow, that came out of the blue. That's a real left field.
Yeah, this is the other side of the music.
All right, so Modcom was something I did with Modular Systems back in the mid-2000s, and I did a whole bunch of shows with a limited t-shirt every show, and always a new track. The problem I had was from about during the late 2000s, it became very difficult. I was really busy and a lot was going on in my life. In 2013, at the end of 2013, I had to leave the studio because it had made me incredibly sick and almost killed me. This is the effect of it I will live with for the rest of my life. That's just how it is. And I was told by somebody, I'm going to get to where I'm going, why I'm getting to the Modcom thing. I had a good actor come in and do all these tests, because we were all trying to work out why are we feeling sick. did a test on the wall and said, pack everything and get the hell out now. Like, that's serious. So we said, oh, right, okay. So it affected me for a long time. I had a lot of problems finding a new studio. And always problems trying to find a studio where I could set up all of this equipment because it's a lot. Also at the same time, modular systems became a very trendy thing. And you had a lot of people in, especially places like Brooklyn in New York, the hipster generation jumped in on modulars and everybody wanted one because they saw someone else with it. And they were all making the same awful sounds, nothing constructive, just making random noise that sounded like whale farts or a cat being tortured. And I kind of think it took away a lot of the novelty of making this music. I have a big collection of analog synthesizers, vintage ones, going back into the late 60s. I'm an obsessive when it comes to the origins of electronic music. And I would love to, I've written a lot of things for Modcom, excuse me. I would love to continue on with this, but if I do, I think I have to take the old music and completely redo it. And the experience is not to hear it on a record. The experience is to see the whole thing and watch a show like I was growing up watching people like Vangelis or Klaus Schulze, you know, these people who had amazing equipment around them and they were using it like like painters making a beautiful landscape painting. So if I do this, I have one request. If I would ever do a completely analog VNV Nation show, I have 2 locations I would do this, and there's 2 problems. The insurance, when you bring a lot of old synthesizers that you need because they make the sounds in your music, and I don't want to disappoint, and I don't want to do it half-assed. I want to have as much equipment as I need, but it would look like, probably going to look like a Jean-Michel Jarre show if I do. I mean, that's the only thing people who listen to average music can compare it to. For me, I think of other great musicians. Isao Tomita comes to mind, a fantastic Japanese synthesist who did a lot of classical music with big, huge synthesizers in the 1970s. So I would love to do that. With the Modcom thing, it's much more, it's a harder, dirtier, nastier sound, I think. I would love to. I would love to have the time next year because I've had the studio to do it, but I didn't have the studio until the end of the pandemic, and then I was working on Electric Sun. And I'm just incredibly happy with the space I'm in. You also have to feel in the moment for it. You can't just go, right, I've got modulars, let's play, let's create something. Because if you're not in the feeling, you're just pushing yourself to create something, not making it because it happens. And the great thing about modulars is that I sit there letting them work for a day and just randomly finding things, and I go, right, that's cool, I'll make a track.
What are your wishes for next year besides your music? So what should happen next year? What do you think?
Jesus. What I would like for myself or for the world?
As you like, maybe both.
Well, I can keep hoping that humans will figure out how stupid and petty they are, but that's probably not going to happen. That's going to be a long evolution before we reach that point. What do I want for me? That I don't over tour so that I can actually sit down in the studio and do what I'm planning to do, which you don't know about.
Yeah, but you said about this last time that you don't want more time in the studio for yourself. So
I want time for me. I have a lot of passions, a lot of personal things that I love. I want to do a lot more driving in my vintage cars, but I actually want to get out and see the countryside. There are some really, really cool people in Germany who've written, they've given or created Fahrplan for people who want to drive with vintage cars, and it's saying this is the best route, you'll see all the best scenery, and I really want to see more of the countryside. It's something I do a lot. I did it during the pandemic. Every Sunday was Green Day, and what that meant was we would get in the car, my partner and I, and we would drive out into the arse end of nowhere as far as we could, and then if the navvy told us to turn right, we would turn left. and we would get ourselves lost, finding the most beautiful fields, the most beautiful little villages, and we found the craziest things. I mean, really, we found one place where there were about 20 cameras. It was behind like in a small village, and there's a row of houses, just typical things, and we decided to drive into a gasa to turn around. And then we realized, oh, hang on, there's only one lane, so we can only go in. So we'll go to the end and turn around. So we went in, came around a bend, and there is something like, I don't know what, a highly secured, some kind of place, I don't know, surrounded by trees with big fences, cameras everywhere, just hiding behind the main houses of a little village. And we could see the cameras turning to watch us, and it's like, okay, we'll reverse really slowly. We met crazy people out in the countryside and just started talking to them and hearing about the history, and them talking about what happened in here and all of their local history. That's what I love, and it's something I think we all spend so much time on the Autobahn, we miss. You know, if we drive from Hamburg to Hildesheim, I will always drive on Landstrasse because it's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, there's so much to see here.
And I absolutely know. Next time we will talk about your vintage cars and stuff like this. Because I think this is another passion you can talk a lot about. But not today.
Let's not do it today.
A little bit much.
Thank you again for this interview. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, it was a nice time for me.
What are your plans for Christmas?
Oh, we do a small family thing with her mother, my mother, and her aunt-in-law, and we will do some eating, some drinking.
Beautiful.
No alcohol.
I'm gonna be cooking Christmas dinner because we're playing in Chemnitz on the 25th, and we play in Hamburg on the 23rd. A lot of the people can't get home in time for for any kind of family thing. So it was very normal for me when I lived in the UK and it happens a lot in America, that people have orphan dinners. So if you're not able to be with friends or family or loved ones, then we gather together and we have a party, or at least we have the dinner. So I'm cooking on Christmas Eve, and I will have some of my crew, 3 of my crew, some other friends who don't have anybody to spend Christmas with, and they're all coming over to my place. So that's my plan.
That sounds really, really beautiful.
I hope so, because, you know, I'm going to be spending I'm going to put them on the couch, go watch some movies, whatever, have fun, here's some alcohol, yeah, great, okay, thanks. And I'll be in the kitchen making, Semmelkuchen.
Then we have a really last question. Semmelkuchen?
Yeah, go on.
What do you cook?
Oh, Ente. For me, Ente, I'm also cooking a vegetarian option, and I learned a lot. I had my partner's vegetarian, so in the past, at orphan dinners, there were always vegetarians. So when I lived in Toronto many years ago, the orphan dinners, I would always have to cook vegetarian options. So I learned a lot about how to make some interesting options for people. So I'm gonna go crazy with it. I love, whatever I do, if I have to do it, I want to do it with passion, And there may be a cocktail or two. Because I used to be a cocktail barman as a side job, many years ago. But I've never lost the talent for it. I don't drink very much alcohol anymore. In fact, the last couple of years, I just stopped. I'm just not interested. So only if I'm going to have something special, then I'm going to have some cocktails.
Maybe one day we drink one together.
I hope so, because the last time I made a menu for people, I had just decided cocktail evening at my place, closed off the kitchen became my bar, and I just made cocktails all night and started inventing them. And some people couldn't get home. They needed help. It's amazing how quickly they catch up with you. And it was really funny. The worst is when you have a cocktail evening and someone goes, nee, will nur Bier.
Okay, no.
Boring.
Boring, yes.
Try something different. So yeah, that's look, having something fun in your life, you have to. Otherwise, there's no point living. always try something different, just for fun.
Yes, and that's a perfect ending, I think.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a happy Christmas, Frohes Neues, and yeah, guten Rutsch, I should say, sorry. And we'll see you in 2024.
Yes.
Peace out, yo.
Yes.